So this is Year 7, Week 11 homework for Mr. Reed's Maths group. You'll notice that the deadline, the third strike for handing it in, is Friday as usual, 23rd of November, so just make sure that you've done your homework earlier than that if you want, but certainly by that date. Right, if we look at question 1. Now this is an algebra topic that we talked about briefly at the end of the last lesson, and what you have to do is try and write these little sentences as algebra terms as simple as possible. And I will just do the first one, just to give you an idea of the sorts of answers I'm looking for. So if I say to you the first one says 5 more than x, the best way to write that is to say, well, I've got x, and I can add 5, like that. X add 5. So that's the answer to the first question, and it's your job to go through and do the rest of them and think carefully how to write them as simply as possible using algebra. And a massive clue here would be whenever dividing, you should really use fractions. That's the best way to do that. So I don't want to see the divide sign in any of the answers on these questions. Let's look at question 2. Collecting terms. You're supposed to collect together all your x's and write your answer down, and so on. Collect your a's and b's here. And as we've spent time in lessons this week coming up doing these topics, you'll be fine doing these questions hopefully. You may have even seen these at primary school. Just collect together your x's and y's and write it down. Now this question 3, I've actually written this here because I know if you don't read the question carefully you'll go wrong here. You might think you've got to add these together or something, but actually it says how many terms are there in each of the following questions. So what you have to do is understand what the concept of a term is. What's an algebra term? If you're not sure what a term is, you could always Google that and have a look. What is an algebra term? And then the idea is to count how many there are in each of these questions. So each of the answers here will just be a number. How many terms are there? How many terms are there? How many terms are there? So 3 numbers required there. On to question 4. Now question 4 is one of these top cat problem solving questions. I've structured it more in a more organised way than the zoo question from a few weeks ago, but it still requires thought. The question is, what's the total cost of this family holiday? And it mentions the number of adults and children and some facts and information about the holiday. Please pay attention to the fact that children are not all going at full price, and also people are spending money, and the adults are going to pay for the gym here. So there's quite a bit of information. If you don't show you're working out, you're not going to score marks, and also please don't start using a calculator. You need to use column addition and multiplication wherever needed. Question 5, estimation. Big hint here. Some of you were brilliant at this in class a month ago, but have forgotten already that we need to actually change these into one significant figure rounded numbers before we calculate. Same here, you'll round this first, then square it, and on this one round it, round it, round it, round it, and then of course you can do your calculation using BidMaths. Question 6, I think this is the last one. One of the problems that's creeping into this class is students are reverting back to techniques from primary school that aren't working, unfortunately, and so there's quite a few people making mistakes with multiplication of decimals because you're not following the techniques taught in class. If I was to say this first one, I'm not going to do all of it, but if I was to say, well, it's 15 tenths, and I'm multiplying it by 9 tenths, that should give you a big clue how to proceed in that question. Final clue on this homework, if you're dividing, turn them into fractions first, then keep, change, flip will help you turn it into a multiply question and then answer that successfully. So we've got to do that on these questions here. There's no fractions involved here. This is just simply a BidMaths question, as is this. Right, so that's it. Please come and see me. If you find any of this difficult, you need help, I am available before school starts. You should find me in my classroom. And remember that deadline, which is Friday.